Perfect. So this webinar series, which takes place on the third week of each month, aims to share insights and experiences from experts in the industry. For this month, we will be covering the podcast power, tuning audio IP into screen success. Heba AlSamt. I am the Content Support Director in Dubai Media, and I am thrilled and happy to have Nadine Samara, CEO of Nadine Samara Leadership Academy, and Leen, Karadsheh, Head of Originals at Salt Media, and joining me today in this discussion. So may I ask all of you to have your cameras on and microphone so we can start the discussion.
Hi, Heba. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here with you.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So to start us off, I have a question for both of you. Podcasting is often described as the most intimate medium. What was the moment you personally realized that the audio story you were involved in had the potential to live beyond sound?
Interesting question. Deep question. Your first question, Heba, is a deep question. So how about the rest of the yeah.
Jump in.
Amazing. See, I mean, for me personally, for all of the sessions or all the podcast episodes that I have done, and so far, I'm gonna be launching my 30th episode, hopefully next week. 30 episodes. For me, there are 30 different stories, stories of people around us that we sometimes don't know or ignore even to ask and see what they're doing. And they are moments of touch. All of them are personal stories. They are very close to my heart. They have impacted me in so many ways. I learned personally from them, from every single person, so much. And as you said, it's an intimate type of media because you get into this studio room, two people together for around 1 hour and a half. My content we shoot for continuous 1 hour and a half, and we don't cut anything. So it's a very yeah, you've been there. We're gonna talk about that, I'm sure. And then we spend this time together, going through the journey. We get into a very personal moment, and these leaders are so genuine and so generous to give us all of this information. So for me, I have 30 different moments that I can't forget. And I can tell you by name every one of them and what I have learned from them as well.
Awesome. Leen.
I love that it's 30 different moments you can't forget. صراحة, it's true. Every story we ever work on is a story that lives with us beyond the time and the moment that you do it. And I think that's why storytelling in general is something so magical. And for me, I find that I come from a film background, so I kind of have a reverse appreciation of audio. I've always grown up loving film, and like the screen was the first thing that I developed an attachment to when it came to storytelling. And a couple years ago, I realized that when you listen, you create room to imagine. Whereas when I watch, I'm being shown what to imagine. And that for me unlocked a lot. So I started, coming from a documentary background, I'm used to telling the story in terms of visuals, purely visual. Like I cannot get into a documentary before I ask myself, why do you need to see this on the screen? And I found audio to be a very liberating space that allows you to achieve that intimacy beyond the restrictions of how can I bring it to life and like visually speaking. So yeah, but I worked on a TV show for HBO, and it was about a real story following a cult in the US. And we had started filming immediately, but then at some point realized that to get people to care about the story before it even premieres, because it was an unfolding case, and the FBI wasn't investigating the issue, and they had tried to go and reach for help, people who were inside the cult, and they couldn't get the FBI to take them seriously. So intentionally, we helped the story expand over written, like on newspapers with the New York Times and through podcasts. So then the story itself started gaining traction, and the FBI was forced to really take it seriously, which then translated for us perfectly into the documentary series. So it becomes a whole ecosystem.
Awesome. So just recapping on this, Leen, what makes an audio story adaptable for TV and documentaries or digital series, and what should stay untouched? Because many Arabic podcasts today are deeply personal. They're raw and voice-driven. So what should stay untouched?
I think the integrity of that raw voice, honestly, if someone gives you access to tell their deepest, darkest, or most brightest stories, you have to honor what they're sharing with you. I think a lot of things can be adaptable, and it really depends on what the point of view we have access to is. So if it's like a story where it's just a reflection and there's nothing to actually document, then maybe it should just exist in audio and you let people live through that with you. It doesn't really have to be a film or a TV show. But then if it is something where it's unfolding and there's the emotional engine is very clear, and you have access to different points of views, then you can really expand that universe further by producing it. And I think just the main thing is to preserve the integrity of the voice and making sure that you don't overproduce something that is raw in its original form, I think.
Nice. Nadine, audiences across MENA seem increasingly drawn to real voices and lived experiences. So why do you think this shift is happening now, and how does podcasting uniquely serve it?
So I think when it comes to authenticity, I think this is a global movement when it comes to social media. You see in social media that everyone is more lenient and they would like to watch reels or shorts which are very authentic. Fine, sometimes, content which is like really highly edited, sometimes it goes viral, that's fine. But mostly what people are interested in more and more over the time is the authenticity. And this gets translated into the podcast as well, which in my mind, podcast as we know it, as an audio show, it's something new to the Arabic audience anyway. I mean, I've been talking about podcasts for a while now, but when I tell people a podcast, they always think that they need to go to YouTube to see it. So watch before listening. So for them to get used to the idea of listening through, the different platforms which are available while they are walking or while they are in their car, this is relatively new to the Arabic world. So I would say maybe 2 to 3 years back, people started even to, do that and listen to the content there. And most of the people who are right now watching or listening to podcasts, actually, they are watching the podcast. I mean, if we do some research, this is what we're going to find. They know it's a podcast. It's called podcast, but they would rather to go and watch it on YouTube or even on Instagram shorts or reels or shorts on the other platforms, TikTok and others. So authenticity is the main thing, and that's where you see. I mean, a lot of people are going to the podcast to listen to real life stories, and if it's very highly scripted, they will be away from it because this is not what they are looking for, and this is not what they are trying to find. They are trying to find these stories of people which are like very close to their heart, which is very authentic, live the experience through their eyes, see what they have done through that. And I believe this is the main driver for this, and it's going to grow, I think.
So Nadine, what are the platforms that are actually buying today?
Buying the podcast? Not really, not much actually. I mean, a podcast, when it comes to audio and video, it's one of the content types that is thought as, until now, it's free content for most of the large platforms. I barely saw a platform which really invests on that. See, buying ready-made podcasts is a little bit not, it does not exist. Even if they reach out to you, they expect that the podcast is going to be given for them just for free and it's just for exposure. But what I started to see from media companies, that they started to produce their own podcasts. So this is something else. They create these podcasts, they promote them, put them on their platforms, and try to push them through marketing. Then yes, they do that.
I think we're in a moment where there's also a shift. I just want to add, Netflix now, like the latest development is that they signed a deal with Spotify to start playing and sharing their video first podcast content on Netflix directly. Now this is in the US, or like the Western Netflix. So I think we will see the effects of that at some point. But yeah, as Nadine was saying, it is common practice in the States, but it's not common practice yet here for us. And I'm interested to see how it will transform with time.
So
Yeah,
how yeah,
sorry,
so how are
Heba.
you how are platforms embracing the multi-format, the content strategies, audios, videos, short clips, and documentaries? So to grow, are they embracing it to grow reach and engagement, or still you don't think it's still relevant here?
I think we're in the very early stages. I think, as Nadine was saying, something that I was surprised by when I moved back, because I moved back to the Middle East 2 years ago, and I noticed for the first time when I was at home and my mom had the TV on, that there's a podcast on like a live TV network, and it says like the name of the show is whatever podcast. I was thinking, but that's not a podcast. If it's on live TV and there's commercials, that's not how I define podcast. Like it defeats the purpose for me. Isn't it now just a talk show? I realized, oh, okay, like there's a whole different understanding of podcasts all around. I don't think anyone really fully has one defined definition for it, even abroad. Like everyone is developing the platform, the medium more and more by the year, I think, and the opportunities for it. So I think today platforms aren't necessarily embracing it to that extent. I would love to see a lot more, because I think there's so much room for collaboration and growth. But I think brands are starting to understand the value of podcasting in the region, the MENA region. And I think that's already a key shift when they start thinking of their full marketing strategy, for example, and a podcast is there. And it's like an industry that isn't necessarily a media industry, but they know that they can directly bond with their consumers through this method. I think eventually it will, inshallah, yani, it will continue to grow.
So interesting. Yes, so this brings us to the collaboration. So if we talk collaboration, what does a successful partnership looks like? And looks like between creators, media companies, and platforms. So when developing podcasts led by IP, what does this partnership looks like, or what does this collaboration looks like?
Okay, if I may take this. So I think any type of partnership or relationship needs to be a win-win type of a relationship where each party has something in it for them, right? I mean, else why would they get into this? And I think there is still a lack of understanding from the media companies to look at the podcast as a mainstream media rather than I don't know, a new media type of thing that's coming up. They need to start looking at it as from a business perspective. So far, this type of partnership happens, then the bigger win is going to go to the media company, all right, not to the creator. The creator is so far they are better off with the social media because this is where they're going to get the exposure. What do they need as content creators? They want reach, they want viewership, and then they need to monetize their content, right? And because these content creators are big on social media, that's why the media companies started to approach them, right? And try to find some type of a business relationship with them. But I think what is missing in here is to really understand the value and that these content creators are already there. So if you really want this relationship to work out, you need to find a way to monetize their effort or to compensate for effort in a way that would help both, rather than expecting that the content creators are going to give you the content for free in exchange of being on your platform, which I have seen it a lot. Like this is the general expectation. We are still on an area where traditional media, TV in particular, and then even digital media, the OTTs in a better shape, I would say, but still the traditional media, they think that we still own the voice. And this is not true. Not at all, right? I mean, even when it comes to investments from somebody who wants to work to market themselves, and they really, or their PR, and they want to be somewhere, on a platform, whatever, it's much better for them to be on a podcast that's well known, all right, rather than be on a TV show, whatever it is. There is a big difference between the reach and the amount of interactions that they're gonna get, and even for them to get into the objectives that they want. And I remember one of the people who came into my podcast, and it was unplanned, really. And he joined me. He was from an IT background. We talked and we had like this amazing conversation. And then Jitex was across the corner. So I launched his episode before Jitex by one day. It was not planned. He goes to Jitex the next day, and everyone was treating him as the celebrity. Oh, we saw your podcast. What an amazing podcast. Were you with Nadine Samra? Were you, or whatever? So what I'm trying to say here is that uh, media entities, whether it is traditional TV or OTTs, really need to look into this as a mainstream media, rather than, it's something that might come and disappear. We hear this a lot in the media. Okay, fine, it's a small type of content that is there, not very important. I hope this is changing, Yani, now.
This reminds me of the beginning, the first eras of OTT, Nadine, if you remember. It was always the add-on, and it was always the freebie. So I think we're still, as you said, and as Leen said, it's in the beginning phases. So Leen, how important is regional relevance versus global appeal, especially for Arabic language podcasts aiming for international adaptation?
That's a great question. And I think that guided so much of my thinking, especially when I was working in New York. It was a very different dynamic because the market itself sustains. Like, I can just target the American audience and it makes sense and it's okay. It was enough. And then coming to Jordan just forced me to really rethink how this system operates. And because we have very limited options here, and at some point Amazon was going to open, then they didn't, then HBO was going to open, then they didn't. So you don't really have that many players that are creating a competitive landscape. And so we always call it like creating global content. So it's like local stories that have global appeal. And I think I find that super important. I know personally it's made such an impact on me. And watching things like Parasite or Squid Games, they're very big films and TV shows that were not made for the global audiences, but did resonate. And I think that's also for me the essence of storytelling. The whole idea of it is to be able to foster that kind of to break down the walls that separate us and realize that we're actually all much more similar than we think we are, even if we're separated by geography. And so when you are able to create a story that's local and super rooted in its local authenticity, but it translates with authenticity, I think globally it will just naturally make that impact because of the fact that it's touching into very real human stories. And so I think it's nice to balance both. I think we shouldn't be purely catering to a global lens. I think we should honor our stories. We should own our stories. We should tell them as we think they are. And I think for so many years we were forced to fit into a mold so that the Western approval is given to us. And honestly, things have shifted, especially in the past couple of years. We're really seeing so much more appreciation for what we can offer for ourselves and by ourselves. And we don't really need to depend on the global acceptance. But it is a powerful thing when you're able to really unite over one story. And it's the same thing when we look at Turkish content or Indian content, etc. And it translates across borders, not just from that side to this side. There's a lot of different ways in how we can achieve that.
So here's a question for both. At what point should creators think about screen adaptation? So from both of your experiences, does adapting a podcast for screen bring in new audience? Does it deepen loyalty with the existing one, or what do you think?
Interesting. I think maybe Leen can answer this in a better way than me, but from my perspective, um, podcast is there for a reason, right? I mean, the connection with the person who you are, interviewing or sitting and having the talk with. And normally these people are just normal people like me and you. I mean, they're not celebrities. They're not people of interest. I would say sometimes they are. Sometimes yes. I mean, we see people who are of an interest who are not famous on podcasts, and we are interested in their stories. Well, that's amazing. But normally, most of these podcasts are with just normal people, and that's why people love this. It's just like knowing about anything, anytime, anywhere from anybody. I mean, let's explore. It's like a magic box. You open it and you see, are you interested in it? Yes, it's interesting. You continue or not. So for something like this to be transformed or transferred into screen, uh, it can be done as watching the podcast itself with all authenticity that comes with it. Yes, that would work. Moving it into actual documentary, maybe if there's a very appealing story and people love the story, moving it into a more of a show or a proper show, it can be. But I did not see anything that even with the biggest shows, something like this happens. It's like, you know what we are saying? I don't know if I'm right on this, but it says something like, the bigger value comes on the larger screen rather than, and now you have a smaller value. You know what I mean? Well, I don't like to look at it this way. I like to look at the podcast as a mainstream that's going to continue to be existing. It has its own ways of consumption, ways of operation, and ways of distribution. And in case an interesting story comes into picture and then somebody picks it up from the TV world, well, why not? If it doesn't, then it doesn't.
Sure. Leen?
Um, yeah, I think it really can. It depends on the theme and the topic of the podcast. I think if it's something like a true crime story or whatever, like something that really has a starting point and an end point, I personally, I really nerd out over getting to enjoy the same story on multiple mediums. Like I will listen to the podcast, I will watch the documentary, and I will watch the fiction series. If it's like this crazy murder story, I will really like embrace all of them, and I'd be curious to see how they translate so naturally or easily, or what are the facts that they keep out of the podcast but put in the film or the written or whatever. And it's nice to see how one story is reshaped depending on the medium. I think when you do allow someone to enjoy a story beyond, it's like even when we're kids and you watch an animated film and then you go buy the toy and you have that toy and you take it to school, or it's like a pencil case and you get that pencil case with the character that you grew up watching. It's this attachment that you can grow with the story beyond across formats. And it just depends on the story. I think if it's conversational style, interviewing cool people and stuff, it's not necessarily made for that kind of adaptation. But when it's maybe an investigative story, or like chasing someone's biography, like a very well-known person today and where they started from, etc., then an adaptation is a powerful way to bring in new people who might not enjoy listening or not enjoy watching, etc. Like just allow more access points to the same story and deepen loyalty for the ones who do love it already.
So Leen, what defines a successful podcast today from your perspective in the MENA region? Is it audience size, engagement, community, or monetization? So what defines it?
All the above. I think it's like, I hate to say monetization. It's a sad reality, but because we live in a capitalist world, we need to make money somehow. And I think a podcast that makes money is a successful podcast. Like that's just a fact. To make money, you need to have that engagement, you need to have that appeal, you need to have the listeners, you need to have the numbers, you need to make compelling content. And so by the time you reach a monetizable podcast, then I think you've already achieved all the other stuff before that, at least big names or access or some kind of selling point. But yeah, I think engagement is so important. Like when you actually publish that and people want to comment and you start a conversation, or like we have a podcast at AlSamt, which is a fiction podcast about Juha. And literally 2 days ago, we're working on a new season now for Ramadan. 2 days ago, we got an email on the contact us form from someone who said, please, I need another season of Zaha because we took a year break. So for the past year, we did not release a season. And they're like, please, can you release new episodes? But for me, that's enriching that this person is actually waiting for us to release this podcast. It's a sign of a successful story or production.
Awesome. Nadine, from your experience, how can a podcast host build trust and loyalty with the listeners in a crowded audio landscape?
It's difficult. The answer is very difficult, not easy. So there is no simple answer for this. I think in general, in business and in when it comes to entrepreneurship, because this is one type of business that we're getting into, right? I think it's a cliche, but it's a word that I really believe in, which is passion, especially with the new projects. If you have the passion to deliver something, right, this should be driving all of your creation. And a podcast is a content creation by itself. And normally, if I'm talking to an individual creator who is creating her or his own podcast, then what's really important is their passion and believe in the idea. If they believe in the idea that I'm going to be delivering this because there is a need for it, these stories are very important for people to listen to, and they see the gap in it and they deliver, then they're going to be successful. Of course, consistency is a big thing here as well. So I believe the believe in the idea, the passion towards the idea, and then the consistency in the production and creating the content. These two things will drive eventually people to spot this thing, to drive interest from people, and go to it and give it a chance. And then when the first click is give it a chance. And if they give it a chance and they come to you, then it's your role now to make sure that you hook them and make sure that it is worthy. Their decision to come to you was worth it. And they continue, be loyal to you. And I've seen this in practice probably. So I'm saying this not from corporate perspective, probably as I used to do before when I used to get with you here in the ICM and some of the panels and stuff, which I have changed roles, right? In a year now. Last year, I was talking to you in a corporate language. Now I'm talking to you from a content creator language, more of it. And that's the experience that I went through my podcast. So at the beginning, lots of people were like, yeah, do it. I mean, we see potential in doing something that is business, corporate related type of podcast. And what really drove it is my passion towards it. I really believe that people need to listen to stories from people who have done a good job. We need to listen to them, what they have done, right? So the passion was there, and then the consistency. I was consistent in shooting, in finding the right people, in launching these episodes, and not to get back and say, okay, I've done like a couple over 3 episodes, that's enough for me. My plan was like a bit longer than this. I wanted to see more to come out of this.
Sure. So Nadine, I have a question actually regarding your podcast. So your podcast is published on YouTube, on Spotify, and on other platforms. So the data here, the numbers, do they help you in making decisions? Like I'm 100% sure that the numbers on YouTube is different than the numbers on other platforms. So how does data and audience feedback play a role in deciding how you move ahead with your podcast? So we heard, Leen, that the feedback made them happy, that people do want to watch, are waiting for Jaha. So from your perspective and your podcast, how does this help you?
Sure. Now, we need to understand something about the podcasts here in the region. First of all, of course, numbers are very important, all right? But let's break down where the numbers come from. So it depends on the platforms that your podcast is on. But normally, the podcasts are on YouTube, Spotify, and Ghami is a big thing. Apple Podcast is a very big thing as well, and Amazon Music and Audible. I'm on 6 platforms, right? The numbers are different per platform, and that plays a role. So if we don't really understand some of the information that I'm going to tell you, it will be difficult for us to decide what this really means, because it can be misleading. I always say, if you really don't understand what is behind these numbers, you are going to be always either in confusion or misinterpretation of the numbers, all right? So my numbers are the highest on 2 platforms, on YouTube and on Apple Podcast. They are the highest. And then for the rest are lower and lower and lower, all right? Going into Audible, which Audible is the least. The first thing that I can tell you, the reason for this is the people, my target audience is in the Arab region, and it's in Arabic. So most of the Arab people, where do they really listen to podcasts or to talk shows, if we may say, that it's going to be YouTube. And then the next one where it's going to be Apple. And then the rest will come. So Audible is not very popular here. That's why. And Ghani is a good one too. That's growing. And Ghani started to grow now. Spotify is growing for Arabs, but it's mainly global. So if you are targeting Arabic listeners, so that's not going to be your main. So understanding so many elements are going to make you better to interpret what this really means. Now, back to your question is, does these numbers help me in deciding on some of the elements? Well, they do, but the input of these numbers are more, where do I need to work more? Or am I really doing enough to make sure that the content is visible on YouTube? Am I doing enough to make sure that my content is listened to on the Apple side? So it's more feeds into the marketing rather than feeding into my content itself, right? It might feed into something else, which is the choice of the people who are coming with me on the show. Yes. But what would feed into this? Not the numbers in my mind. It's the feedback and then the comments from the people. So they comment, they send me emails, they interact with us on different channels, and tell us their opinion. Or even YouTube comments. I mean, I get a lot of comments there, or messages, DMs, you name it. This is, in my mind, this is my go-to, my customer voice. That's the one.
So Leen, does this also help you with deciding on how to go forward with shows? Does these data, do you look at them seriously other than feedback? What about the data, the statistics, the numbers?
Yeah, of course. I think data tells us just where the attention is, but it doesn't really tell us why. And so you use it to guide those decisions, but then ultimately the editorial judgment is still what really matters more than anything. You don't really chase the numbers, but you use it to guide, just like a verification tool. Like, people actually want to hear this, because ultimately you need to put yourself in the audience's shoes. And if they don't care about this, then, and they're not tuning in, then it's a good thing for you to pivot. But I think also the data, it depends on the content. Sometimes the whole algorithm game, it's like a different minefield that you have to play with, and you don't fully always know if it's not getting to them because they don't want to hear it or because there's just too much noise out there. So it's important to look at it, and usually it's a sign that you're either doing something right and keep going, or maybe you need to question yourself and pivot in some direction. So you see the number, but it doesn't tell you why it is what it is. So then it's on you to really make sense of that.
So Leen, what genres are currently showing the strongest growth in the UAE, in the Arabic audio?
Interestingly, I mean, I don't know if it's shocking. True crime is one of them. People love a murder mystery type show, even if it's just someone straight up telling you a story. Zero animation, zero graphics, design, anything. It's just me telling you a story of a very scary murder that's not even in the region. So true crime is one of them. Fusha, Arabic storytelling, like old school, like Juha, even 1001 Nights. Those are our top performing shows at SALT, and they have a loyal audience even when we're not releasing stuff. So I think it's very interesting to see that narrative podcast, for scripted storytelling, audio podcasting is doing well. Even more so sometimes than a conversation. Like, we've tried different versions of conversationals. I think SALT in general, what we do best is our narrative work, and it continues to show up in that way. So yeah, I think there's a lot of interest in true crime. There's always interest in like pop culture type stuff or current event type stuff, even like football. It's always on people's minds. Even though we don't have a football show, but we follow some of the trends. Yani, I see what people are searching and looking into. But yeah, I was mainly surprised.
Do we have? I don't reckon hearing any genres, sports genres in the region, right? Any podcast? Do we have?
At some point at SOT we had one. It was a conversational one called Tiki Taka, and it stopped a couple years ago, I believe. But there are يعني رؤيا and Jordan has one. They have like a sports related show, and of course BN has يعني they do following, but it's not like a full on podcast. But they do like conversations following big matches. But I'm not sure. That's a good thing to look into.
Yeah, interesting. Nadine, if I can just ask this question, what mindset or leadership skill do podcast creators need to have to sustain their shows over multiple seasons without being burnt out?
Yeah, absolutely. I think many things goes into it, but the first element of the question is how does leadership work in this? I mean, podcast is for a content creator is an something upgrade for them because it's not like the regular content creation journey that they do, right? So they are more of a promoted type of work into a show. Let's call it a show, and a show is an actual production. So they will need a lot of help in that, whether they know the know-how or they need to get the external help. But of course they will need a lot of skills, and if they don't have the skills they're gonna learn it. I mean, it's inevitable that they're gonna learn through the journey while creating this. But the first thing is teamwork. They need to have the right team in place. They need to, one of the skills that they need to be able to have is accepting feedback and bad comments, and at the same time eliminate noise, because you're going to be hearing a lot of things around you. You should be focused. Focus is very important. You should know what you want to do. Your vision is very clear to you, and then you are working towards that vision. So from a leadership perspective, it needs a lot of leadership that goes into it. And to avoid burnout, I think it's for anybody who's in business, even content creation is the same thing. Just stay consistent. Just don't get bored quickly. Be able to handle the pain of boredom. Sometimes we don't feel that we want to do this, but if you want to be successful in the thing that you're doing, wherever you are, a podcast, content creation, social media, even in the corporate world, you need to be consistent and you need to do the work. Nobody's going to do the work except you. I mean, that's for sure. So we really need to be having the patience to get into the level that we want. Accept feedback from others, work it out. And if you want to take a break, let's take a break to not get burned out. That's fine. Take it, but come back stronger. That's my advice.
Interesting. Okay, here's a question for both. How are audience listening habits evolving in the region? Is it long form, short form, episodic, seasonal, narrative, or conversational? I think we tapped in few on that, but to just answer this question, what would it be? If we can, Leen, if you can start.
I don't really think I have a full answer for this. I think it continues to change from time to time. I don't know that we can even put it on like one path and say this is where it's going. I think people are open to exploring different formats, and it's about innovating. I think there's room to innovate, and it's changing every day. Honestly, the landscape continues to change. But Nadine, maybe you can say more about this.
I like that answer. Actually, you're in my opinion, you're absolutely right. I mean, when it comes to content creation, we are always in this continuous change cycle that is never ending. It's about trial and error all of the times. We'll try something, it works for 2 weeks, and then it stops working, and then we need to reroute and pivot and so on. And that I think it goes across the board. But what I see on the podcasts in particular, if we're talking about the genres of the podcasts, then yes, maybe the charts would give us a bit of a guidance on the interests of people. But that changes too. So let's assume that you picked up genre that this genre is not very popular. such as me. I picked up management, right? I mean, management is, if I want to classify it, it's a boring topic. It's a very rigid topic. So it's very difficult to convince anybody, even without me starting, to go to anybody and tell them, I'm going to start my podcast is on in management that never goes into the highest categories of consumption. People are going to think, oh, what are you trying to do? But I believed in the idea. It was, for me, it was not like I want to hit the top charts. For me, it was more of I want to provide value to the audience. And I think maybe the word value is very important that we need to look at. Yeah, we need to really to hold on into it, because this is what people are looking for. They are looking for value. And that's why my podcast at one point of time, like, alhamdulillah, over the months, month on month, in so many Arab countries, it's ranked number one in management. Even in Egypt, which was, I would never dreamt of Egypt, by the way. It was never on my why not be. I love to be on the charts in Egypt, but because Egypt itself has a lot of content creators and they have a lot of podcasts. So for me, it was like something like a start to shoot for, and then I was there. So what really made it happen, the passion, true, but it's the value that I'm delivering. People want to listen to something of a value. And here where is the content creator ability to transform this value that I want to provide into something that is tangible through edutainment. So I'm doing education, true. I mean, at the end of the day, it's an educational content, but in a way that appeals to people, especially in this time. And now it's working. Maybe next year it won't work. Something else needs to happen. Right now, I'm doing 1 hour, 15 minutes. Next year, maybe it's going to be half an hour, or maybe it's going to be 2 hours. One of my guests was with me, Mo Gaudat, and he was like, we finished the 1 hour and a half, and he's like, why? I mean, why don't you continue? And I'm like, I'm enjoying my conversation with you, but I think it's too much for the audience. And he says, no, let's go. I mean, we can do 2 and 3 hours. I mean, this is very interesting. So it might be things change, trial and error all of the time, and keep on changing. The only thing which is constant in our world, generally speaking, I was in technology, now and more into content creation. The only thing is change, innovation, innovate all the times.
Yeah, right. So for creators in the region, what support is still missing and to help the Arabic podcast scale into sustainable multi-format IPs? What do you think we need? What is missing?
If I may take this, I think media organizations' understanding of the value of the podcasts. I think this is missing. They are learning, but it's taking them a while, a bit, to see it as something that is important, it's impactful, it has its audience, and its audience is growing. I mean, this is something very important. So we have a type of content that the audience that is who are consuming it, the base is growing. So if they start to have this understanding, their support is going to be higher to the content creators. I tell you, I mean, the content creators nowadays, I mean, since the consumption of social media and the start of social media, they have the support through the systems of the social media. I mean, their best friend is the social media platforms. They create events for them. They monetize their content sometimes, somehow, right? So they're finding their ways there. They're getting them the exposure that they want. I mean, they're finding it. I think that the people who are missing out in this equation, and they should not be missing this out, especially that I am coming from a corporate world, OTT side, media side, us as media people, we should not be missing this opportunity out. We are being left out and there's this relationship between the content creators and the social media, very, very strong. Both of them are taking all of the benefits, and we are staying away. Why? We should be part of this system, completely benefit from it, benefit from on these content creators. Let's not leave them. Let's own them. For me, I mean, if I had this opportunity now, this is one of the things that I would do as a media, professional. I would make sure that I would, have long-term podcast content creators agreement with these guys, because some of them now are reachable. Later on, they are not reachable. They will not be interested in me even. So I think this is the support that's needed. Is the media professionals, the traditional media, people to start looking into these elements.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
completely agree. Like platform opportunities, actually, to create an intentional space for them to collaborate with podcasters, and I think also maybe invest more in helping people develop their ideas and their skills when it comes to this place. Yani, uh, put in some resources, some financial investment to create a writer's room, to do some incubators, to invest actually in productions and help creators develop the story and shape the story as a skill set, as a tool. But yeah, I completely agree, Kman, with Nadine.
Leen and Nadine, at what point should creators think about screen adaptation? When do you think they should, or should it be from the start?
I think it doesn't have to be from the start. I think you just first of all have to ask yourself, like, does this need to exist? Like, and if it does, what does it look like? Just be very honest with yourself. Why does it need to exist on screen? You know, sometimes it doesn't need to. Uh, if it's a story that's unfolding and that it's rooted in like a big identity story or a lived experience, I think it becomes a no-brainer to adapt into the screen. And if it sits at that intersection of something that's personal or political or global, if it touches on these big themes and it's like an action-driven thing, then it probably should. But if it's a more intimate, quiet story, maybe it shouldn't. I think it just really depends on like an honest question and answer of why does this need to exist on TV? And is there enough for it to bring it to the screen, or am I really like forcing it?
Okay. If it's doing well on as audio, not as a screen, does all content that does well can do well on screen, or it's not necessarily?
I think not necessarily. I think we go back to the same question of not there's no one size fits all. Sometimes something can do so well on even like Instagram, if it's a social media, and they think, okay, let's brand that, take it further, and it flops on YouTube. But on Instagram, people want it. On YouTube, they don't. You never know. So yeah, I don't think it's a like a direct correlation for sure.
Yeah. If I want to talk about brands, brands are increasingly interested today in podcasts, not just in ads, and but as content, as in being content partners. So how can brands authentically collaborate without compromising the integrity of the story of a podcast?
Interesting. Amazing. I want to see more brands actually coming into the podcast because it's an opportunity. It's a
Yes.
big opportunity that I see that brands they really need to start looking into this in the region in particular, because here in this region, visual podcast is a big thing rather than where we talk in other regions that it is more on the audio side. So here you're winning even the visual side, which is maybe your biggest thing here. A brand integration within something visual is very easy, relatively speaking. You can do it from a brand perspective, from with a content creator perspective. They can create something very interesting. They can sponsor shows actually, and then the sponsorship can come in different ways. Not the monotonic type of intro at the beginning. This is brought to you by this. We can do that, but I mean there are more interesting things that can come on screen with branded stuff, with integrating actually the brand into the conversation. And this is something that I have experimented well with and worked very well. So in my podcast, you will never see something relating to a particular brand, very prominent, but the story, it is linked to a podcast. Linked to the story itself in the podcast, linked to a brand. And that's very impactful and very authentic because you're not changing the story. It's you are including it within the discussion. Like in so many cases, there is 5 or 10 minutes of the time that the guest is introducing something that they are working on authentically, and they are solving a problem for the people with that. Type of exposure, authentic type of exposure, you don't get it anywhere else. You get it only on such formats which are very authentic. They reach to the heart of the people. It's not an ad break where people are expecting not to listen to what you are saying anymore. And it's not also hardly inserted within a podcast where even the host is gonna say something or a recommendation about something that shows that this is an ad. No, it's something integrated within the content in the conversation itself very authentically. So I see a big opportunity here that needs to be capitalized on by the brands for sure.
Yep. So, Leen?
I agree completely, and I think it's something I said earlier in the webinar, but how they're starting to see it as a space where they can naturally or more intimately bond with their consumers, and I think this is a space that really should be utilized a lot more. And I think in terms of like integrity and letting that collaboration feel like it's also authentic, it's as long as people are a brand is aligned with the messaging and the values of the host, the topic, the content, and they recognize that they're not there to script or control, but they just want to align with that person. It's like walking into the room with that person. Then there's a win-win for both people. So if they're like their role is merely to support a conversation, not to control it, and that's how like the collaboration really feels like authentic and important.
So looking ahead, I know we spoke about crime and investigation genres. Looking ahead, what type of Arabic podcast content do you think is most likely to become the next breakout screen success?
Yeah, I would still say probably true crime. Yeah, I think if global trends are any indication, I would most likely say either true stories like biographies of incredible human stories and ordinary people achieving extraordinary things, or true crime because they captivate. Yeah, they captivate your attention. They make you really question things. And I think my main hope is that podcasts continue for Arabic podcasts to like really function as an R&D lab for storytelling, like actually help us put the tone and the language and the storytelling elements together before they reach a screen, and see how that works with like a much smaller investment in terms of time and resources.
If we fast forward 5 years, how do you see the role of podcast evolving in shaping the future of Arabic storytelling?
If I
Yeah.
may start, I would say I don't know. I've been in this, like, I've been in media for 15 more than 15 years now. I mean, running, OTTs, creating content dramas and so on. And we always had like all the times we had a fear. Like 15 years back, I remember sitting on the CEO's office in NBC Group, and what we were talking about is that 10 years from now, TV is gonna disappear, and we all need to work on this OTT thing and make sure that we are the biggest and the largest. And fast forward, this did not happen, but a lot of other things happened. I think the presence of the social media really controls a lot of the scene. The scene is controlled by it because the dynamic of social media and how it's changing and how it's influencing people and how people are influencing the function of the social media. So social media, by the way, is driven by the interests of the people. I mean, things change based on people. I mean, we are the drivers. Sometimes people always complain about the social media, but guess what? You are feeding it, you are driving it, and you are changing it. They are learning from you, right? And they are providing you what you want, what you prefer. So how our interests are going to be different, how are they going to change in 5 years, I really don't know. And previously, I would give you some type of an oversight of where are we going to be in 5 years. But now I avoid that. I actually like to explore it and go with the flow. The more we can adapt to the changes, and the more we are lenient into our rigid vision, the better it is for us, because we can grow with it. We can always float with the stream and be with the waves rather than against the waves, especially if we have a hard on vision in 5 years from now. That's my answer.
Leen.
I love this, and I don't think we need to add any more. صراحة. I love when we can honestly, and that you're honestly acknowledging that let's pretend, like, let's not pretend we will know. We cannot predict. I think it continues to change, and as you said, we just have to be ready to ride the wave and like actually go with it.
Okay. So finally, if you could give one piece of advice to the emerging podcasters in the region who dream to taking their stories beyond audio, what would you tell them and what would it be? Leen, Nadine.
Yeah. Beyond audio?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it goes back to something I said earlier, but about the screen. It's like, ask yourself why, and just be honest with the answer. Sometimes that's like, honestly, as specific as you can be about why does this need to exist, and then the format will follow, and in terms of how it should exist.
Nadine.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna tell them, go for it. Go for any dream that you have. Don't allow anything to stop you. Nobody has the knowledge better than you. Nobody knows how to do things better than you. And this goes to everyone. The reason for this is we are all learning. We are all, whether we are in media for a very long time, actually, it might be a disadvantage, actually, if you are in media for a long time, or a new content creator, or you are a person who have been creating content for a long time. It doesn't really matter. We are all in the mix together, learning across the way. So do what you think you want to do. Try it. Don't stop. Know your value. Know the value that you want to give to the audience, to your audience, what it is, and work for it. Work for the content. What people want is content. I mean, the more I work in the content creation area, and the more I am on the podcast side, the only fact that I believe in is the value of the content. People change, ways change, screens change, audio, video, shorts, reels, regardless what it is. What people are following is what am I listening to? What am I getting out of this? Is it laugh, entertainment, education, whatever it is? If you have a value to provide, chase that value, give it to the audience, and then the audience is going to follow you. They're going to follow you. It's inevitable. If you are consistent in delivering this message, everyone is going to look at you and then follow. And they are not following you, they are following the content. Remember that always.
Sure. Interesting. Thank you so much, Leen, Nadine. Thank you for your great insights. I had an amazing time discussing this topic with both of you, and it was a really enriching insights. This is it for today. Thank you everyone for attending, and special thank you to Nadine and Lara. In case you didn't watch the full session, a recording of this webinar will be published on the DICM.AE website by next time. So the next webinar will be From Minutes to Moments, the Power of Short Form Storytelling, which will stream live on Feb 11, 2026. And in case you don't know already, the Dubai International Content Market will be taking place from the 10th to the 11th of November this year. For more information, you can visit the website DICM.AE. Thank you, everyone, and stay safe and goodbye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.